Welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. Each week, we hear real time stories from athletes and CEOs on how to maximize performance through an endurance mindset. Let's get started. Well, welcome to the Chief Endurance Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Greg McDonough. I am super excited for our guest today. He is a leadership performance coach, keynote speaker, facilitator who helps leaders excel through the presence and personal development. Previously held roles in leadership development, communication, and as a professional baseball player. Drafted in the 10th round in the 2009 for the Colorado Rockies. His unique background in professional sports, business, coaching equips him to bring mental discipline and adaptability to his coaching style. Speaker, executive coach, founder of CLR Connections. Please welcome Charlie Ruiz. Charlie, pleasure to have you.
Greg, thank you. Thank you for having me. We're long overdue. I'm excited to be here with you.
Absolutely. And I'm doing this remotely, and so that's why I've got a lot of fun. Like, don't have all my typical bells and whistles around me, so I'm a little bit outside my comfort zone, but that's why we're here, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So, Charlie, I love talking about endurance and the endurance mindset. So I'd love to know how your endurance mindset has impacted your life unexpectedly.
Unexpectedly. I think when it comes to endurance, as I'm sure you know with your Ironmans, when I think of how it's impacted me or affected me, it comes into I first think of relationships. And the reality of like somebody telling me, like, you've always been someone who has kind of cared and been of service and built relationships. And I never really understood like the premise of that. I was like, well, what isn't that what everyone does? Like, isn't that what we should do? Like we like build relationships with people when you connect with them, when you play baseball or basketball and you kind of go to war with them, in the locker room, on the field, like you build relationships and they sustain. And they're like, yeah, but a lot of relationships don't endure. And you are very adamant about staying connected to these people. And now, right, there's no surprise where you're building community and a practice regarding connection and relationships. So that's the first thing that comes to mind, Greg.
It's an interesting perspective, Charlie, because you're spot on. And there's so many relationships that we have throughout our lives that sort of come in and come out. And you then think down the road or later in life, like, you know what? I wonder if I leaned in a little bit further with Charlie back when I was 12 years old. What would that relationship be? So go a little bit deeper with that. Like, what do you mean by, there's relationships that we have when people come in and out of our lives pretty quickly, but to your point about enduring and building relationships, like expand on what you meant by that.
Yeah, I think when you think of the heartache, heartache or like a in-depth relationship, people come in and out. I think that's natural. It's meant to happen. But when you think of like some of your core friendships, some of my core friendships, something that I hold dear, is the fact that I live within 35, 40 miles away from some of my close friends that I met, in T-ball. Right, we're talking T-ball as I'm with my daughters this past weekend with one of my friends that I met in kindergarten with our kids at the Little League game at Oracle Park in San Francisco. And there's like this notion of, man, I can't believe that we've known each other for that long. But then when you think about the longevity of building relationships, you go through some stuff. You go through some heartache, or you might go through maybe a tough time where you're not seeing eye to eye on life in a specific way. But when it comes back and you're like, wow, we have endured a lot, that makes the depth of your relationship even more important. And to apply that to maybe a significant other or even a business relationship, I think that's when you really start to realize, oh, we've been through it. And there's something about even saying that we've been through it together.
So the question that comes to mind is the how, right? How do you endure through the tough times of a relationship? Like, because it's so easy. Well, I wouldn't say it's so easy, but it can be easy just to say, you know what, enough's enough with this relationship. I'm moving on. I've got better things to do. And you can kind of lose the principle and the purpose and sort of your connection there. Do you have sort of a secret sauce or a recipe that of how do we kind of get through those tougher times?
Hmm. I think awareness. Awareness is my first, and it's kind of how I operate just in general, is like it starts high performance, building relationships, building performance internally. Everything starts with awareness. So I think in the same when it comes to enduring some of those, it's awareness of like, am I being honest with myself and how I've been showing up with the relationship? Two, am I being honest verbally and communicating with the other person where I'm at? Or am I just being honest with the fact that, hey, this relationship has come in and like that's okay too. And I think through being vulnerable and open enough to have those conversations with self, with them, the person, then that then creates that's part of the how. So not necessarily a secret sauce, but I think we got to be vulnerable and honest with ourselves on is this serving me? And if not, to be honest and have that conversation with that person.
That's powerful. I would love to know, when did this click for you? When did you realize that you have this gift of helping people become self-aware and then using that as a superpower for whatever they're trying to achieve?
I don't I don't know is the short answer. I I think if if I were to connect the dots backwards, I think it was something that I was always called to do as coach or to create a space or a container, right? To build community. And I think when you do that and you are open and the door is open, this dates back to when I think of like my upbringing, growing up in the apartment complex, the way my mom and dad used to operate, where they would open up the doors to any and everyone, just create a safe space for them. And that takes a lot of vulnerability to do, which then I think realized, and after I got into this work of executive coaching and storytelling and identity, I'm like, oh, wait a second. I feel very comfortable creating the space and listening and opening up in service of somebody else because they may not have that anywhere. And I'm like, oh, my parents have been doing this for their entire life. That's probably why I'm open to it and why I lead with that.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your mom and dad and your upbringing and that open door? Because it's not a first that I've heard a
Hmm.
guest on this show actually talk about, and so I'm really intrigued of sort of what that environment was like.
Yeah, I'm glad we're going there. It's nice to kind of pivot into something different. Um, so I grew up in an apartment complex just 10 minutes away from where I'm at now. And my mom was the manager of that apartment complex. There's 900 units. So there's a lot of people there. My dad worked at a warehouse not too far away. My older sister lived in an apartment complex. My godfather, one of my heroes, lived right next to us. So we had this like small based community already there. And people would come in and out of the park, of Parkside Commons, the apartment complex, just knowing that there was already people there that we all knew. So when we had parties or we had gatherings, we lived in the backside where there was like the most parking you could find. And it was like almost our own little kind of haven of the longest little grass area. There was like open wall where you'd hop the fence and go to the local, burrito shop down the street. And it just felt like that was truly like a home, like a 3, 4 bedroom home, yet it was an apartment complex. And everyone just gravitated toward being there because they knew they could always go there. And I saw them do that with my older brother, my older sister. And I'm like, oh, this is open door policy. And I think it's probably because maybe that's also how my mom was raised and also maybe where my dad wasn't. And I saw the counter side of the way that they were raised. And I'm like, yeah, my door is always going to be open. And I try to do that now.
Absolutely. That's, you're bringing back a lot of my childhood memories of like hanging out with the neighbors at the cul-de-sac at 4th of July, and somebody made ice cream and somebody brought the fireworks, and like we just don't see that as often today.
No,
And so you're just making me reflect on that a little bit.
good. So when we bought the home here, we're 10 minutes away in a neighborhood I didn't really know existed. We got lucky 7 years ago and bought a home here. And the first 4th of July party, I was like, whoa, like they blocked off the streets. And I was like, this is like a scene from Sandlot. And kids are just running around. There's bikes, there's fireworks. And I'm like, oh, this is childhood. But then again, my childhood was slightly different because it wasn't home. It was this back apartment complex that was gated because we also didn't live in the best of areas, but we didn't know any better. We were rollerblading, playing wiffle ball out in front. I mean, that's where I learned the game of baseball. It wasn't on a beautiful diamond with really nice jerseys. It was in front of my apartment complex with the bushes, uh, beat up wiffle ball bat, and 8 random kids, playing outfield. Like that's how we grew up. It wasn't at the park. It was at Parkside.
That story reminds me. I'm a soccer guy.
Yep.
I played up through college and a little bit after that, and never was elite enough to get to the even be thinking about playing in college level. But it reminds me of Pele, and when he grew up playing soccer, he would use an orange, right? And so it was him and his buddies in the backyard or out in the street with just anything that was round that they could find. And it taught him a tremendous amount of touch, right, with his feet. And that obviously propelled into his career. Charlie, I'm curious for you, like, coming from playing, behind the apartment baseball with your buddies and wiffle bat to actually going to being drafted in the major leagues. Like when over that span did it click to you that, hey, I've actually got a skill here that could actually get to the professional stage?
Yeah. I think probably my sophomore year of junior college, I was a basketball fan more than I was anything, I think, growing up. And it was like both. It was basketball season, baseball season. And I think I realized probably in high school, right, I'd gotten hurt from baseball and I just remember missing it. Because I mean, I could say Little League, Greg, but like everyone will say, like, well, I was the best in Little League, but like, it's Little League. So when you're a sophomore, junior in high school, and I had my love as basketball, and then I got hurt to where I couldn't play baseball, I missed it. And then when I came back my senior year and I didn't have any scholarships, I was just trying to get a scholarship to be the first one to go to school in my family. And I had a really good senior year, but I was like, I didn't get a scholarship from there. And then that's when I went to my junior college, which Chabot Junior College, it's two of my favorite years of baseball ever. That's when I saw the talent that was coming in. And I was like, oh, here I thought I was good. And these guys were like flamethrowers. I mean, I'll never forget me showing up. Everyone had their like coolers and their like chicken and tuna and cans and like protein. And I'm like, oh, this is a whole different game I need to figure out. And all those guys had like scholarship opportunities or were getting scouted. And then all of a sudden your sophomore year, you get thrown in the game and there's radar guns and you're like, oh, they're here to watch the team, but now they're asking me questions. Oh, maybe I do got something here. So I'd probably say my sophomore year of junior college.
And then were you drafted straight out of school, or did you have a gap between? Talk to us through that process.
Yeah. So I left. I got a scholarship to Long Beach State out of Chabot Junior College and went down to Southern California and played at Long Beach State with the Long Beach State Dirtbags. And there I was drafted in the 10th round by the Rockies. In baseball, you're able to sign as soon as your junior season ends. So I signed out of there in 09 and went straight to a short season with the Colorado Rockies. And that started my professional career. And, the way when we talk about enduring, like I truly do think when I talk about the career, I never thought I would be there. Like I always enjoyed the game and I found myself I would always talk about like getting lucky, but then it's like, no, I worked my butt off to get here, applied the mental kind of fortitude and the mental skills to allow me to do it. And then it was about execution, but I never thought I was going to be a professional baseball player where most kids or most people, they're like, oh, I knew I did. I was just like, oh man, maybe it will happen.
That's awesome. So walk us through the jump from Major League Baseball to executive coaching to the work that you're doing now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I will have to say, like, I wish, right? I was just on the field last T-ball. But again, things happen for you. My minor league career was cut short, so I didn't make it to the major leagues. But I had shoulder surgery that kind of talk about the fact that I rehabbed for just as long as I actually played. But that said, like that all was part of the path that was written to then find myself now saying, now what? Here I am on the boards, projected to go, boom, shoulder surgery. Now you're having to finish school and you had never even thought you would be there. So now in baseball, unlike maybe other sports, baseball's a long season, right? The minor league season is 132 games. The major league's 164, 165. Like it's a lot. So you don't have these in spring break and summer. That's all baseball. So there's no summer internships. You don't go work. Now all of a sudden you're 26 years old and you're looking at a resume. You're like, well, what have you done? And the answer is play baseball. So I think of it as like that transition was a slow burn to go, what do I need to go do? Found myself in sales, and without barring you on that 7-year journey of me going, I don't know if this is it. I then kind of found myself into asking myself the question from the beginning of what is the thing I love to do? It's like, I love creating space. I love building relationships. And what better way to do that than to coach? And that's when I went on my own like introspection of how do I go coach?
You bring up some real sound sort of career advice there, right? Like that you mentioned doing the thing that you love to do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many of us that are sitting at our desk, pushing sales, managing teams, frying fries, like whatever it is, but it's not what that person is passionate about. And it's not what that person loves to do or is hoping to do every day. But it's a real struggle to make that change, right? To get up off that desk and say, you know what? I'm going to go do my own thing now. And I'm going to take this leap. I'm going to take some risk. How would you coach somebody through sort of that situation where they've got their 9-to-5 job or whatever they're doing to keep the lights on, but they really have this passion and this glory of doing something different with their lives and really see sort of a mission behind it?
In short, start. But backing that up, this is where the introspection and the awareness comes back. What about that job? What about you showing up at this 9-to-5? Do you actually thoroughly enjoy? It goes back into even in sport. What about being on the baseball field, the football field, the soccer field? What about the sport do you actually enjoy? In baseball, think about this, this long, boring game. If I'm showing up for BP, batting practice, I'm pitching at the end of the game because I'm a closer, I might show up to the field at 12 p.m. I'm pitching at 9:30. That's not 9.5 hours. What do you think I'm doing? I'm having conversations. I'm connecting with my guys. I'm learning about their history. We're in the bullpen kind of telling stories. And when it comes to the craft of the sport of baseball, what do I love about the sport? There's 9 people on the field. But yet, when I'm pitching, I have a sole responsibility. So it's almost like this individual concept wrapped within a team concept where I have my roles and responsibilities I have to perform, but I also have to depend on the team around me. So there's no reason why now, after 7 years, here I'm in this entrepreneurship world, running my own business. I love that individual concept, but I've realized, man, I need my team behind me. I like both. Well, I grew up this way. So what about the game of baseball do I love? I love stories. I love nostalgia. I love the individual concept. I love the ownership. I would ask that person who's at that 9-to-5, what do you like about this job? I like the numbers. I like the strategic, a poker player. I like the strategic kind of mind games that I can play with somebody. We're talking about a professional poker player. Oh, cool. Strategy. Awesome. Numbers. Tactics. Great. Sounds like analytics. Sounds like something else that you might be able to go apply at this boring corporate job you don't like. So I really like to encourage people to find space to say, what about this job do I actually love or do not? And people usually don't even go through that exercise.
Certainly. And it's a powerful exercise, right? Like to look at what you are enjoying, because it's not usually not 100% negative, right? There's usually something that you like, or there's a lesson there that you're going to learn or pick up. Um, Charlie, when you're talking about being coming to the ballpark at 12:30, 12 o'clock, and closing out a game at 9:30, and you've got this 9.5 hours worth of space, and you're making these connections and developing relationship with your teammates. There's also, I would suspect, a mindset shift that you, as the closing pitcher, must have when you see the game going into the seventh, you see the game going into the eighth, and you're like, oh, I'm going to have to actually play tonight because it's not this 10-0 blowout that I was hoping it would be, so I could go hang out, just chill with my boys. Walk us through sort of what you would do to kind of like your game ready when you showed up at 12:30, but you've got to be, and it's one of those positions where there's not the rest of the game that's going to save you, right? It's 10 pitches at most, if I'm guessing correctly. And so you got to be laser focused at the first pitch. Like, walk us through sort of how you'd build that mindset as the game progressed, and then you knew it was go time.
It was like a slow burn throughout the game where I'd be aware enough to where it's like the mental, like the morning, like pregame, all that routine was very consistent. Everything was very rote. They say, closers are arguably the most superstitious people in the world, other than maybe like NFL kickers. But everything was the same. The way I played catch, the way I stepped on the field, the way I'd probably hang around in the dugout. So I'm like hearing what the guys are talking about, getting a feel for the game. Fifth, sixth inning, I'd find myself kind of like walking down and like really starting to get my mind right. And at that point, you have a rock star energy drink, right? Or something that, whatever the drink of choice, I'd usually kind of take that down sixth, seventh inning. And then I would pretty much lock in from seventh to ninth to say, okay, great. If it's within reach, I got to start looking at the guys with even more focus and picking up some of the cues, but I would not overthink it because I had already prepared. And the real routine would start probably eighth inning with stretching, and then with all of the mental imagery, with the breath work, to where if they're like, all right, get up, right? Like, get up. Like, that's the signal from the bullpen. I was like, oh, I've already done this 1,000 times, but I had already done it in practice. So then when it came down to game time, I'll be the first to tell you, and my coach would be the first to tell you, I was terrible in the bullpen. Coming into the game, they're like, this is the guy you're going to roll out there? I was terrible. But I just knew I had to get my 10 to 15 pitches out, and if I did, I'd be all right. Because I'd already done it so many times in practice. I could never let what I did in the bullpen determine how I was going to show up on the mound, because everything on the mound was already written, at least in my mind.
So how do you apply that with your coaching now? I mean, that there's
Yeah.
so much there to unpack from a business leadership perspective. It's fantastic. So I'd love to hear it from you of how do you take those same principles that you sort of built and learned into your professional athletic career and now apply them into your professional coaching career?
It's hard. And it's a lot of what I do when it comes to for myself and try to help other people do it. So I try to keep it simple. Again, awareness is one. Like, that is rule number one. I can't coach you outward. A lot of people say, like, how do I get out? How do I go solve this? I'm like, let's go in first. Like, what do you need to do to prepare first? How can you prepare for the moment, whether that's a pitch, whether that's a keynote, whether that's a tough conversation? Like, let's talk about what preparation even looks like. And let's get focused and locked in there, especially regarding this kind of notion of the sport of speaking, something I'll be kind of talking about quite a bit. So often in the corporate space, we are reactive. Oh, I got this tough conversation. Oh, I got this pitch. Oh, I got this keynote. Oh, I'm on a panel. Now all of a sudden I'm scrambling for a week or two trying to find someone to help me get coached. No, if we're working on the inner game or the external game in the communication world, why are you not training in the same way you trained as an athlete? Like, are you doing video review? Are you getting feedback? Are you making adjustments? Are you getting uncomfortable? Or you're just winging it. I'll just wing it. No. Are you training your communication in the same way that you train in sport? The answer for most people is no. And that starts with prep. So when you get on stage, when it's race day, as you know, like, I've already done all the work. Now I just got to show up and go. And that's where we want to be.
Now, talk to us a little bit more about how you work with people and teams, because that's just a small sliver of your overall ways you've been helping your community, our community. Charlie, tell us a little bit more about what else you do.
Yeah. So it's typically two tracks. There's the keynote stuff that I love to do just because it's one of many, but I think of it as like, I am hired to go work with you or an organization to help you either know yourself, know your players, which is what I get from my mother, which also means to know your colleagues, your team, your employees, and then to be able to tell that story and tell that story either through your voice, through your actions, or even like what you tell yourself mentally. So when you think of how I get hired, sometimes it's leadership offsites, corporate teams, where they're trying to find like, what is our identity? Here's our mission, our value statement. And then I'm like, all right, great. Like what are they? And then you will ask, let's say an executive team or a leadership team or a sales team, what does curiosity mean here? What does accountability or what does work ethic mean here? And they'll all give you answers, but most of the time they're different. So I'm like, great. How are we developing a culture if we're also speaking a different language? And then the other side of it is the storytelling and the speaking side. As I'm sure you know, whenever you're communicating a message, the thing that we don't have is clarity. It's a lot of confusion. We have a lot of information. So I love being able to work with teams and executives and individuals on creating a clear and cohesive message and then helping them deliver it when the clutch moments come. So a lot of my storytelling and speaking work is how do you train and tell stories as if you're training like you used to do in sport.
Storytelling piece is really powerful, right? Because if I find that people relate to your stories more than they actually relate to the information you're trying to deliver. And I also find that if you can motivate a room to learn from each other versus just them learning from you speaking off the stage, and so when I stand up on stage, I'm really just trying to wind the audience up so they start talking with each other and start sort of ideation, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And here's the thing that's been interesting for me as I've stepped into this kind of like keynote, I'm one to many. There's a world for that. As we know, it's a huge industry. But my background, and again, I'm thankful for the work in the firm that I worked at when I got out of sales, right? It was a communications firm in Silicon Valley called S&P, where they would train the top companies in the world on presentation skills. And we would go in and work with the Googles of the world, the Airbnbs. And I kind of found my shtick there where I'm like, oh, wait, a lot of these are athlete principles that I kind of have learned. Now I can like talk about mental imagery and apply some of what I've learned from some of that work and go, wait, my magic or my sauce, the stuff I love to do is what you just shared. I like to have them learn from each other. So when I think of the sport of speaking, or I think about getting a team of 8 together, sure, I'll have my frameworks and my ways and how you deliver and speak and pause and all the other things. But they learn when all of a sudden they're sitting and I'm in the back of the room coaching and they're like, ooh, you're right. When Greg does that, it looks better. And now they're learning from somebody else. So then that 4-hour workshop becomes culture, team building. We just went through some tough work together. And then they walk away with their own pitches. I love to do that. If I could do that with an audience of 500, that's a win. It's just, nearly impossible. So I definitely agree with you on like, how can I get people to collaborate and come together and learn in a way that is impactful and something that isn't just walking off a stage going, oh, that was a cool theory. Back to the day job. No, like let's get some work and pen to paper now. That's my preference.
I love, I love it. So I'm also curious, Charlie. You went from working in a business, right? You just described sort of that environment, doing presentation
Mhm.
skill training with Google and et cetera, to now you're running your own business, right? So now you're signing the front of the check and not just the back of the check, as I like to say. Um, so I'd love to know more about your any surprises that have come up in your entrepreneurial journey that have been good, bad, or ugly.
How much time do we have? So
Loaded question, of course.
yeah, such a paradox, right? Where it's like went on a walk yesterday with a dear friend, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's going to take you about 3 years to kind of really figure out where you want to play in this space of serving the world and creating your own business." And I'm like, 3 years? I don't have time for that. I got three little girls here. Like, they got a lot of adorable little demands. I don't have 3 years for this. I need to know now. And here I am coming up on 3.5 years. And I finally feel like there's some sort of like actual direction and focus where it's like, what do you do? I work with high performing teams and I help people tell their stories, whether it's an athlete or an executive. That finally feels very in line to where the endurance that it takes to just consistently showing up and the wave of emotions that we know as an athlete, it's like, how can I stay neutral? I think entrepreneurship has just been a life lesson in staying neutral and to endure the ebbs and flows of the big win, the loss, the big win, the loss. Like, how can I just stay neutral? And I think this goes into a lot of the work that I do just around being present and focused on right here, right now, as opposed to getting to the compare and contrast or getting into the, why did I do this? I just lost $20,000 investing in this team last year that did nothing for me. Well, this is part of what you signed up for, Charlie.
It's awesome. Because you're right, right? Like this entrepreneurial journey, the highs are high and the lows are lows. And if you really dwell on either side, you're gonna just go crazy and be in circles all the time. And so the closer to neutral that we can stay, using tricks like breath work and meditation and exercise. Any other tricks come to mind of sort of how you keep yourself neutral?
People, I start in five, and it's meant to evolve with you based on the current season in which you're playing in. I think that that's something that I offer to people trying to find their transition into what's next. And then also, even just now in this world of corporate executive coaching, like who's in your starting five based on what you need right now. And yeah, I might need someone who's going to give it to me straight. I also might need the person who's going to say, stop thinking so small. And then I'm going to have the other person who is going to like almost calm me down or zen me out because I'm moving too damn fast. I also might need someone like, you know, I mean, she's always in my starting five, right? Someone like my wife who's going to be like that overall, like, I know where you're at. And let me just reflect back to you, like where, like be the ultimate mirror. Sometimes people, you just need somebody in your starting five to just hold the space for you. But like, that's the thing that I think helps us in this phase of, based on the season we're in, stay committed to what we say and stay connected to the things that actually matter, as opposed to get caught in the rat race that as an entrepreneur, we clearly don't want to be in.
Fantastic. I love that helping us with the season that we're playing in.
Yeah.
Um, and really thinking, you got me thinking about my starting five. And so I'm going to do some reflection on that a little bit later. Charlie, an audience member wants to get in touch with you. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
I mean, social, I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. My Instagram is Charles L. Ruiz. And then my website, CLRconnection.com. And a lot of what you probably start to see is me pushing out and talking about this kind of notion of the sport of speaking. And that is really being able to create some live events and some cohorts around really helping people own and tell their story um, based on the current season that they're in.
Sport of speaking. That's, I hope you trademarked that because that's really, really clever. Charlie, it's been awesome having you on the show. Those in the audience, if you got some value out of today's show, please subscribe. Please share this episode with your community. Let's get Charlie's message out. There's a lot of positive takeaways from today's show. In the season that you're in, your top five, who's your starting five? I really enjoyed exploring our conversation around your growing up with your mom and your dad in the apartment. It brought back some nostalgia for me. You can hear it in my voice.
Yeah.
Anyways, I could continue to talk with you for hours and hours, but again, it's been awesome having you on the show, and I truly appreciated the content.
Thank you for the space. This was fun. And heal up and congrats on the latest run.
Thank you for tuning in to the Chief Endurance Officer podcast. To hear more inspiring stories and strategies around the endurance mindset, be sure to subscribe below or visit us at chiefenduranceofficer.com. Until next time, keep pushing those limits.